$7,000. Not 100,000, not a million, 7,000. I know that number sounds small to some people, but if you're watching this, you already know it doesn't feel small. It feels like a wall. Because you've been trying. You've been budgeting, cutting expenses, maybe picking up extra work on the side. And somehow, that number just sits there, barely moving, mocking you a little, if you're being honest with yourself. Here's what nobody tells you. The $7,000 stage is actually the hardest stage in personal finance. Not because the math is complicated, but because this is the exact point where most people quietly give up, right before something finally starts to move. I want to talk about why that happens, and I want to walk you through the exact path I'd take, knowing everything I know now, to break through it. Let me paint you a picture, and I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar. You're not broke. You're not irresponsible. You actually care about money more than most people around you. You've watched the videos, you've read the articles, you've made the spreadsheets, maybe more than once. But every month ends the same way. A little progress, then something happens. The car, the phone bill, a family situation you didn't plan for. And just like that, it's gone. Something always takes it back. And the worst part, the part that really stings, is that you start to wonder if the problem is you.
It's not. The problem is that every piece of financial advice out there is written for two types of people. People starting from absolute zero, or people who already have money working for them. Nobody talks to the person in the middle, the person who's doing everything right and still feels like they're running on a treadmill. That's exactly who I'm talking to right now. I'm not going to give you a 10-step framework. I'm not going to tell you to open an investment account before you even have $500 saved. What I'm going to share is what I actually wish someone had told me when I was stuck at this exact stage. The stuff that doesn't make it into the polished videos. The parts that feel a little uncomfortable, but are the only things that actually moved the needle for me. Let's get into it. Stop saving, start allocating. The first mistake I made, and honestly, looking back, I'm embarrassed it took me so long to figure this out, is that I treated savings like whatever was left over at the end of the month. You spend, you cover your bills, and then whatever's left, you call it savings. Some months that's $200, some months it's $12. One rough week and it's nothing. That's not a saving strategy. That's financial hope. And hope, as I found out the hard way, is not a system. So I started doing something that felt almost too simple to work. I moved the money before I could touch it. First day of the month. Gone. Like rent. Like a bill I had no choice but to pay. No decision required, no checking the balance first, no convincing myself I could afford it. The uncomfortable truth is that most people can find $150 to $300 per month if they actually look honestly at their spending. Not by destroying their lifestyle, but by making 2 or 3 real intentional cuts instead of feeling guilty about every purchase and changing nothing. At $200 a month, you hit $7,000 in just under 3 years. At $300, less than 2. That's not exciting, but it's real. And there's one thing I haven't mentioned yet that changes that timeline completely. But first, there's a reason most people never even lock in $200 consistently. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to see it. The invisible leak nobody talks about. I call it the invisible leak. And it's not your subscriptions. Everyone talks about subscriptions. This goes deeper. The invisible leak is the money that disappears not because you're careless, but because you don't have a structure to protect it. Here's exactly how it plays out. You get paid, you feel okay. You spend normally for a few weeks, then something unexpected hits. And because there's no buffer, you either take on debt or you wipe out whatever you managed to save. And then you start over. Same story, next month. For a long time, I thought the fix was just to save more, save harder, be more disciplined. It wasn't. The fix was to build a $500 to $1,000 buffer before I even thought about my bigger goal. I know that sounds backwards. Why build a buffer before saving for the real target? Because without it, every unexpected expense resets your progress. I watched this happen to myself over and over before I finally understood it. With the buffer sitting separately, the unexpected stuff stops touching your actual savings. The buffer takes the hit. Your $7,000 fund keeps growing. This one structural change, a small separate amount specifically for surprises, is honestly the difference between people who build momentum and people who stay stuck for years. It's not discipline. It's just how money actually works in real life.
The income side. What actually moves the timeline? Okay, I have to say something here that's a little uncomfortable. And I say this because I spent about 8 months learning it the painful way. Cutting expenses alone is not enough. You cut everything you can cut. You're eating at home, you've canceled subscriptions, you've stopped buying things you enjoy, and you're saving $180 a month. And you look at the numbers and think, this is going to take forever. It is, unless you actually do something about income. Now, I'm not going to tell you to start a dropshipping business or flip things online. That's not what I mean. Think about what you do every single day at work. Writing, editing, organizing data, talking to customers, managing schedules. Someone on the internet is genuinely paying $200 to $500 a month for exactly that. Right now. You don't need a logo. You don't need a website. You need one person, one project, and the willingness to just start. Add $300 in extra income to $200 in savings, and you're putting away $500 a month. At that rate, $7,000 takes about 14 months. That felt like a completely different life when I finally did that math. The goal isn't to build a business. The goal is just to close the gap while your savings momentum builds into something real.
Where you actually put the money. This part matters more than most people realize. And honestly, it's where I made a mistake early on that cost me real time. When I first started saving seriously, I kept everything in my main checking account. I told myself I'd just not touch it. I was disciplined enough for that. I lasted about 6 weeks. The money needs to live somewhere visible enough that you feel the progress, but separate enough that getting to it takes real effort. What actually worked for me, and what I do again without hesitation, is a high-yield savings account at a completely different bank from my everyday account. No debit card, no one-click transfer, just a small amount of friction sitting between me and the money when temptation shows up. Right now, those accounts are paying somewhere between 4% and 5% annually. On $7,000, that's an extra $280 to $350 a year for simply having the money in the right place. It won't change your life overnight, but it's real money for doing nothing different. And the thing that genuinely surprised me wasn't the interest, it was the psychology. Once that number starts climbing in a separate account, something shifts in you. You become weirdly protective of it. You start making different choices, not because you're suddenly more disciplined, but because you can actually see what you'd be throwing away. That feeling is what carries people from $7,000 all the way to $70,000. The real reason people fail at this stage? I want to end with something that I think is the most important thing in this entire video. The $7,000 stage doesn't break people because of math. It breaks people because of time. Month 1, 2, 3, you're fired up. You're checking the account, watching the number grow, feeling proud of yourself. By month 6 or 7, that excitement is completely gone. The number is still growing, but it doesn't feel real yet. And life is still happening all around you. Friends spending money freely, social pressure, weeks where you're just exhausted. And the last thing you want is to think about any of this. This is where most people quietly fall off. There's no dramatic moment, no big decision. They just stop. The automatic transfer still runs, but the real effort behind it disappears. The buffer gets used for things that aren't real emergencies. 6 months later, they're staring at the same number, wondering what went wrong. I've been that person, more than once. The only thing that genuinely pulled me through was changing what I believed the $7,000 actually meant. It's not the destination. It's the proof. Proof that you can build something from nothing. Proof that the system works for you, with your income, your expenses, your actual life. Because the person who builds $7,000 with real setbacks, real slow months, real moments of wanting to quit, that is the same person who builds $70,000. The muscle is exactly the same. You're just lifting heavier later. That one reframe is what changed how I showed up for it every single month after that.
So here's where you actually start. Build the $500 buffer first, before anything else. Then automate your savings on day one of the month, like a bill you don't negotiate. Find one small income move, even if it's just $200 extra. Put the savings somewhere separate with a little friction. And when the motivation drops, and it will drop, I promise, come back to what this number actually means for you. This isn't the fastest path, but it's the one that holds when real life shows up. If something in here made you stop and think, good, that's the whole point. Send it to someone who's been trying but feels stuck. They won't thank you now. They will later. And when you get to $7,000, because you will, the next video is exactly what to do with it. That's where things get interesting. Make sure you're around for it.